So they turn your stomach from like a bag into sort of a donut.
Yeah.
That's wrapped around your own throat.
Right. Yep.
And then that weirdly makes it better.
Butterscotch.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 118 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm thirsty.
I'm Sam, and I ask a lot of questions.
And today is October 2017.
Is that R2-D2's less known cousin?
Sort of, smaller, less effective cousin.
October 2.
October 2. Before we start, we have a warning. Anything can happen on this show. There's going to be profanity and other stuff like that. If you're a child, then you should not be listening.
No.
So, brothers, this week we got some crazy shit.
Well, first, welcome everyone to October.
Yeah, welcome to fall.
Yeah, October's a good month because it's enough outside of summer that probably you're going to have more cool days than hot days, but not into winter enough yet where it's like actually cold. So it's like it's the only month that's legit fall.
Things are starting to get a little bit spooky, you know?
Yeah,
like
everything's dying.
Building.
All the plants are dying.
Leaves are just leaping to their deaths off of
Spiders
trees.
everywhere.
You're raking up plant corpses.
Yeah, my wife loves
your
Halloween
yard.
so much that on the 21st of September, she put out Halloween decorations. And I tried to stop her, but she was like, there's someone else apparently down the street who's also wanting to do this.
Oh, shit, it's a race now.
Because I was like, no, we're not putting them out until October 1st. You gotta wait till October 1st. And then someone else across the street put out some pumpkins. And she was like, they did it. And
This is basically that idea that if there's a broken window on a street, it causes the whole street to descend into
if there's
chaos.
one skeleton on a
It's
street.
just skeletons for
skeletons
days.
everywhere.
So we're loaded up, man. We're ready to rock.
Yeah, we've got a skeleton that we hang on the lamp outside, but our dog is absolutely terrified of skeletons for some reason. And balloons. Skeletons and balloons are kind of the two.
She must have seen too many Stephen King movies.
Yeah, the two spookiest things: skeletons and balloons. All right, so we got some news for this week. The first thing is that Sam and I have sort of finalized our prep to go to Uruguay and give a talk at a game conference down there.
Pretty exciting. It's
So
our first invite outside of the U.S. for giving some talksies.
That's dope. Yeah. We have actually given a talk in Portugal, but over
remote.
Skype.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be legit in person. There's a good chance that we're going to be running a workshop down there and giving a talk and doing panels, and it's going to be busy.
It'll be a lot of fun.
But it should be a lot of fun. So when we've never been to Uruguay, I've never even been to South America.
Yeah.
So,
in Central America.
Yeah, I guess, I haven't
yeah.
either.
It's just way down there. It's on the whole,
Far away.
whole other
Real
half
far
of
away.
the planet. I think it'd be about 18 hours of
Well,
travel.
the weird thing, apparently it's going to be summer down there, which someone told me that, and I was like, what?
Talking about
I
summer
remember
and December.
That whole
Earth
tilt
is
thing.
tilted.
Yep.
So we're winter, they're summer, and then we switch.
Yep.
Yeah. It's zany. It's a zany
I'm
place.
like wearing a parka up here in St. Louis, and then get down there and have to shed all of my clothes. Just all of them.
All of them. that's what happens in summer. What are you going to do? So that's kind of exciting. We'll probably be talking more about that as it approaches. But that is happening. It'll be sort of early December. So if any of our listeners are in Uruguay or South America,
What's the name of the conference?
I can't
Level UI?
level
Level
up
Uruguay.
level up Uruguay.
Yeah.
Or LU, if you want to abbreviate it.
Cool.
We also starting yesterday, we have healthcare.
Yeah.
Which is, it's been a crazy process, and something that, if you're starting up a studio, is something you don't really think a lot about. It's like, hey, if we start to expand, we're going to have people, and then they've got all these like organs and like juice in their bodies that keeps coming out, like bleeding everywhere.
Yeah.
People are just these meat bags that are always falling apart, and we got to make sure to like keep the seams sort of stitched up.
This is our operation, protect our meat bags.
Protect our meat bags.
So Monique actually did all the work to get the stuff put together for us, and had our benefits person come in. We have a benefits person who came in to visit the studio, walk us through everything.
Tom, it's a cool guy.
Tom is a good dude. So that was a lot of fun. And I think it's just a really weird thing to be able to do.
It's a weird thing to both be able to do and to have to do, right?
Yes.
Because we live in a country where we've somehow decided that even though everybody gets sick, like literally, this is a thing that everybody needs, like food, like shelter, and all that stuff. you need to not be dead.
Yeah.
And so for some reason, we've decided as a society that what we do is we just offload this problem onto every individual person uniquely. It's kind of like Internet Explorer, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like, we're not going to adhere to any web standards. You adhere to our standards.
Yep.
And so it's a cool thing to be able to do to make it so that our people don't have to worry about that. But it's also kind of fucked up that
we have to.
We have to do.
Yeah, well, with all the turbulence, with sort of all the questions about what's going to happen, is the government going to repeal the healthcare stuff? Is it going to be possible for people to deal with it?
Well, in our state, our own exchange for the ACA is now going to be down to one company.
Correct.
Right.
One might not even call it an exchange at this point.
No, I'm pretty sure that's a monopoly.
I think that's now just you just buying your health insurance from that one company, like normal.
So we were looking at that, and then we also celebrated my 2-year post-transplant.
2 years cancer-free.
Cancer-free. So these things happen at the same time, basically. And there's a big point there, which is that we want to build a studio that actually can support its people and help in the appropriate scenarios where we feel like everyone needs some help. And so this is one of those things. So we're going to do whatever we want. Everybody can shut up about it. And now we don't have to worry about the bullshit that's going on just everywhere else.
I guess the government's not going to do their job. We'll do their job.
Yep. But only for ourselves, though.
Just for
it's the American way.
Yeah. Everyone for themselves.
Great.
So now that we've got that, now Adam can finally get his throat fixed.
Yep, I can finally get my GERD surgery, which I'm doing on Monday next week.
So Adam has reached a point where he has had food stuck in his throat for days at a time.
Yeah.
Because of difficulty swallowing.
Yep.
Which I guess sucks. I mean,
it's really not the best.
Yeah.
You know? So it
makes it hard to program or move or
it's
think.
very distracting. Mm-hmm. It's just not. And then, of course, now I have to basically just eat a liquid diet. And so
you want to talk about what they do for this procedure?
Oh, yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's called a Nissan. I don't know how to say the guy's name. They're all named after people, but it's like a Nissan. So it's a Nissan.
Great making model.
Funduplication.
Sounds fun.
Nissan funduplication.
Funduplication.
That sounds just like, is that just a car, right? The Nissan funduplication.
It sounds like a car.
I guess that 2010.
I think it's actually Nissan. I think with an E. But I don't know. Anyway, same difference. But the idea is so probably
where does the fun dip come into play?
So the fun dip. So basically they go into your guts, right? So that's where the dip comes in.
They dip it in there.
Get in
now the fun part is they grab a hold of your stomach.
This is real, by the way.
This is real. This is a real procedure.
They grab a hold of your stomach and then they wrap it around your esophagus. So the esophagus is the tube that goes from your mouth to your stomach.
So your stomach is below your esophagus.
It's at the end of it.
It's at the end of it. Yeah.
So then they just grab a lobe of it.
The lobe.
They just loop it around there, loop around the esophagus, and then staple it to itself.
So they tie your stomach around your throat.
Correct.
They turn your stomach from like a bag into sort of a donut.
Yeah.
That's wrapped around your own throat.
Right. Yeah.
And then that weirdly makes it better.
Well, so the idea is that there's probably two things that I have going on right now. So one is just normal, like shitty gastric reflux stuff. Mm-hmm. Actually, it might be three things. So that's coupled with we're going to find this all out on Friday because I have an initial exam. So next week I'll tell you all the awesome stuff that my body got fucked up with. But but probably I have a hiatal hernia, which is where normally your diaphragm sits above your stomach, right under your lungs, above your stomach, and your esophagus just goes through a hole in your diaphragm, that muscle that goes across your chest.
Just a hole.
It just goes through the hole. So the diaphragm is thinking that when you breathe, that's your diaphragm pulling down to cause your lungs to expand, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So there's just a hole that goes through there. So your esophagus goes to that hole into your stomach bag.
Okay.
So that's cool.
I'm with you.
Wacky design, but it gets the job done.
Yeah.
Except when your stomach is like, fuck you, I want to get on the other side of this hole. Right.
Sometimes you just want to cross the barriers.
Sometimes you got to cross some barriers.
Stomach is like, you can't keep me in a diaphragm.
Exactly. So then it pops up through this hole. So anytime a thing goes where it's not supposed to go, that's a hernia pretty much, right? So it pops up through this hole. Yeah. But of course,
guys. Hey, lungs.
But when it does that, now it's actually being like constricted because it's basically made a little pocket, a little tiny stomach. Yeah. So there's like a little tiny stomach above my big stomach. So now when I swallow food, it has to like go through two sphincters to get down there. And so stuff just can get stuck.
You never want a double sphincter entry. You know what I'm saying?
Do not.
One at a time.
One sphincter at a time. And then this probably all is now coupled with, because I've had gastric reflux for now a few years, it's been pretty intense, especially for the past year, that I've probably got some scarring in my esophagus that causes what's called a stricture, which is basically a part that gets kind of narrowed and doesn't flex very well anymore. So now food has to try to pass through there. but it can't really. So now you can think there's like a 3-step process that now when normal people have one, right?
They just swallow it.
Yeah, they just swallow it and you're done. So,
Yeah.
so the idea, if this is all the collection of things that I have to do, then basically they're going to have to go in, stick a tube down my throat on Friday to actually just investigate, right? And while they're doing that, if they see this like stricture, then they're going to stick a thing in there and wedge it back open really hard so that they kind of like stretch it back out. So they'll temporarily fix that problem.
Sounds very comfortable.
So great. And then the next Monday, they're going to put little machines in my guts and then tie my stomach around my throat. So that's
dope.
That's what's happening next week.
Modern
Pretty
medicine.
sweet. Yeah.
So it's just a sort of a regular Monday.
Monday. Yeah. So but I have to go on like a liquid diet for 2 weeks or 1 or 2 weeks. And then a really, really bland as fuck diet for the next.
That's the medical
That's
term.
the medical term. Yeah. Yeah. It's the BAF
sheet of paper.
Yeah, it's the BAF diet.
Yeah.
So then I got that for like 4 to 6 weeks after that or something like that. So it's going to be really boring. But on the other hand, I was looking at the symptoms of this thing. It's like you're going to have trouble swallowing stuff. Things are going to get stuck in your throat like for a few weeks after the surgery. And I was like, this
Like
is already
right
my
now.
life. Like what is
Yeah.
I assume that means it's actually going to get worse though. So that's going to be.
That's my favorite part when they're like, all right, here's what's going to happen with the chemo. You'll be really tired. You're probably not going to have a lot of energy to do anything. You might have some pain. And I was like,
So
is that different?
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now, that's what's going to happen.
Let's just murder this thing and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but maybe like what happened with Sam's first round of chemo, when he suddenly felt a million times better, even though he still had fatigue and all the symptoms.
Yep.
It was just better than what it was. Maybe you'll have the same thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
But maybe more like Sam's other round of chemo.
Where was just really
that was
tight.
not true.
Yeah. So this is happening next week. So that's good luck with that.
It's going to be fun. We're also doing it right before we're doing a jam weekend the following weekend with the studio.
That's right.
And so
The St. Louis Scatter Jam.
I got to get my shit together after having my stomach tied around my throat. Like I got a few days in there to recover and I'm going to come back for jam
It's
weekend.
showtime.
Then it's showtime.
Yeah.
Jams wait for no man.
All right. So we have
Stomach.
one more real big piece of news that has been a long time coming, which is we are launching fucking merch store.
Yeah.
We have a shitload of goodies that we have in a huge bunch of boxes back here in the storage room. But before I talk about the merch, okay, so for starters, it's going to be at shop.bscotch.net. By the time this podcast opens up, the merch store will be live and you will be able to buy all these amazing items.
So
Okay.
a big piece of this is that we're considering this the soft launch.
This is soft
so
launch. We're only
we're
telling
not-
it to the podcast
Yeah.
people.
Nobody knows.
Except for
And
you guys.
The reason is because we're trying to figure out what we're doing. So
How do you get boxes out to people?
how do you make them go?
How do you get them out there?
So a big part of it is sort of having a little bit of a test audience who understands the trials and tribulations of us putting the store together. And by us, I mean Monique.
Right.
And then maybe it'll cut us a little bit of slack if we work out some of these kinks in the initial process.
So we don't want to open it up to the whole world because, the world is very unforgiving.
It's a very ugly place.
And we know that you guys, you're listeners, you know us, we're not trying to like screw you over. So we might make a mistake or whatever because we're figuring our systems out. And we know you guys will just send us an email and be like, hey, you fucked it up. And we'll be like, sorry. And then we'll fix it for you. Right. So we're going to just keep it sort of self-contained and very small for now. And then after a little while, once we get things more settled, then we'll do like a full on legit launch of this thing. So we do have a few questions from some folks about the merch store. So, Mcade says, I know you mentioned something about t-shirts and stuff.
Actually, before you get into this, though, he also has another comment where he tells us how to pronounce his name, which is I am Cade.
I am Cade. He should have probably written more phonetically.
Yep.
But I am Cade says, I know you mentioned something about t-shirts and stuff. I would like to buy stickers and cool stuff to support you. Is that still in the works? Yeah, we have stickers.
It's not even in the works. It's already done. It worked.
Yeah, so Tifa, who has this, she has the capacity to make these really sort of adorable characters. And so she went through all of the Crashlands art and made these sticker packs for each biome where she made her own sort of like adorable renditions of all the creatures and bosses and stuff like that from the game. So we have like a bog sticker pack a sticker sheet, a Savannah and a Tundra from Crashlands, and also just a straight up character sheet that has like Quadrupus, Tendrom, Brubus, Flux, Juicebox, the little robots from the spaceship that you can step on. So we have all those,
and these are like really hardcore stickers.
Vinyl. We're like, so one of the big things was we looked at various merch shops that we could go to, just like upload a logo and they'll just sell like skateboards and mugs and whatever.
They just put it on everything.
They just put it on everything. What we've learned from those is the quality just isn't very good.
Right.
And so we got all these things custom made so that they're like real legit.
They're real good.
We're trial and error various places to make sure we could get some good stuff.
Yeah. So the reason it's taken us a while to get this up and running is because we don't want to sell garbage, right?
Yeah.
We want to sell really good, long lasting, high quality things.
So we have posters, we have stickers, we have mugs with a few different sayings on them that you guys actually voted on from the podcast, which is nice. So if you want to get yourself a Can We Not mug, well, now you can.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
or not.
The actual...
Can you not get that mug? Yeah, you could not. That's also fine.
We finally have a bunch of t-shirts up for sale, including one never before seen one, which is the Cute Lands tee.
And another never before seen one, which is another Eric Hibbler original.
Oh, yes. We
that
have
one's
two.
also new.
So, and then there's the original Butterscotch shirt, which is the one that we wear, which just says Butterscotch Shenanigans on it. So feel free to get that one. Just keep in mind, people will ask you.
They'll ask you what that is.
Literally everywhere you go. You go to Chipotle, you go to the airport, you go get a cup of coffee, you walk down the street at random. Yeah. We've been walking down the street and had like some dude across the street
yell
see us
out
and then just yell and be like, "What is that? What's on your shirt?" It's weird because it's just a totally black shirt with just bright yellow and bright purple.
Yeah, it feels very intentional, but it's completely incomprehensible.
Yeah, and it's even crazier.
So if you want to meet people, that is the shirt for you.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and we've also put together a bunch of bundles. So if there's like certain things you want, so we have like a cute bundle. You know, it's got some stuff. We got the Butterscotch box, which is just like literally everything. So we tried to get some good discounts on those things and stuff.
And there's men's and women's tees, so yeah, we got everything for everybody.
It's actually unisex and women's tees, which is really just V-cut with a slightly narrowed waist, or just like neither of those
right.
things.
So if the shape of your neck is a V and you have a narrower waist, then
that's the shirt for you.
That's your shirt, right?
That's my preferred style.
Yeah. So we got a couple other questions about merch. French Toasty said, have you considered making inspirational cat or Satgat posters, or Crashlands posters, or posters for all of your games, or just a shop for Butterscotch Shenanigans merch? So yes, obviously the shop. We do have posters.
We do not yet have inspirational posters.
Yeah, the current posters are all of the box art that we have for all the games.
Yeah.
So
they're vibrant as fuck.
Yeah, they look beautiful, and some of the pictures you'll see are actually from the ones that are hanging up in the office on our walls. So yeah, they look amazing. Really
so
cool.
we do have them in frames on the shop, but in the pictures, but we made it a point to note that they don't come with a frame.
Right.
This is just what it would look like if you put it in a frame. So we have that, and then we also got a question from Tworg, which
amazing.
Is it awesome? Tworg says, "Are you planning any Scuffle merch, and do you think merchandise is a wise marketing investment for a new game? P.S. Scuffle Buddies theme is now a ringtone on my phone."
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, so Scuffle Buddies is our new game, and a big part of getting the merch store up and running now is that we have enough time to work out the kinks that we can do launch ready merchandise.
Question: do we think it's a wise marketing investment? We don't know.
No, I don't know.
We mostly really wanted to be able to have merch because it just sounds fun.
But there's a big part of this too. And this is something we talked about internally, is that there's no method by which if you play a particular game, or even play games on your phone, there's no method by which anybody will ever know that.
You can't identify your tribe.
Yeah, it's a completely private good, which means if you're going through an airport, for example, like it's actually there's a good chance that someone in the airport might be playing a Butterscotch game also, but you have no ability to be like to lock eyes and be best friends, right? It just is not going to happen. So
unlike say sports, where people will just wear jerseys for their favorite sports team, or like baseball caps and stuff.
So this is our jersey.
Yeah, we got to bring it out of the darkness into the light. And actually, I had a friend text me last week. He's on the New York subway, saw someone playing Crashlands.
Nice.
Talked to him. It turned out to be Alexander, who's the guy who drove over here.
Oh, really?
From the East Coast. And so, yeah, very small world sort of thing. But again, like, how are you going to know unless you see someone somehow hit the angle of their device to be able to see them playing a game? You just don't know. So
those vinyl stickers do a great job of sticking to the backs of cell phones.
Yes, I got flux on mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just want to thank Monique and Tifa in particular for putting this merch shop together.
They did everything.
Yeah, they did everything. Monique spearheaded all of like getting the shop, Shopify stuff going and all that stuff. And Tifa did a whole bunch of work on taking photos. Like we did like a modeling shoot day where we all like wore the shirts and held the mugs and stuff. So those photos of people are that's us in the merch shop.
We are real.
We're not gonna like hire models or some shit. So yeah, it's been really cool to see them just kind of like get this thing up and running.
Yep. And now that we do have it up and running, then it'll actually be much easier to start if things go well to start adding new stuff. So we started with a selection of things that we thought, based on what people had said, based on what we already had available to us, so the t-shirt designs and stuff. We just figured, let's just start with some awesome stuff that we think people will like and then go from there. So if there's something that you just think is awesome that you really, really want, I think there's a contact form on the shop page. Yep. So you can that'll go to Monique. You can just let her know, just say, hey, I'm fucking pumped about this thing.
And it is the case that one of the things that's sort of like one of the big reasons why we wanted a merch shop is we've just always had this dream of being able to get plushies of the characters from our games.
Yep.
It's something that I don't know why. It just makes it like
seems real.
That's the legitimacy point.
It's because you cross the digital threshold into
there's a physical, there's a 3-dimensional squishy thing from your game.
My dream is still a backpack fat fish.
Mm-hmm. Yep, with a big mouth that you can unzip.
Yep. That's one of my
dreams. Stuff it full of other fish. Yeah, and so the only thing with so just know that that's on our radar, but the plushies, you got to get them in these big orders of like at least 1,000.
It's basically like $10,000 to start with.
Yeah, we're quite confident we cannot sell that many plushies right now.
Yeah. So maybe that'll be something that we try to hit during Scuffle Buddies launch, but at the moment, we need a kind of a proof of concept. Yeah. So we're doing like a beta of the merch shop basically right now. So yeah, that's our merch shop news.
Yeah, so go get some stuff. Check it out.
Bscotch.net.
Send us some feedback, and buy some fun stuff. See what you get.
Just and I want to also say, easily the best thing on there is whatever's the most expensive one. So if you just want to buy a lot of those,
actually no, I actually disagree. It's one of all the things bought individually,
not in
so
a
that
bundle.
there aren't any discounts.
Right. Because, what we know is that if you get something cheaper, you value it less. That's what I mean? And so you're going to get a bigger emotional...
when you go to a restaurant and you ask the waiter, you're like, hey, what's your suggestion? And if they ever point to the most expensive thing on the menu, you're like, no.
Yeah, you don't believe it, right?
Absolutely not.
Like, what I would suggest is you give me a real big tip. That'd
be the most delicious meal you could have.
That's my favorite meal is huge tips. All right, so
but also they're probably right because as you just said, the more money you spend on that meal, the better it's going to taste.
Right, because you're going to now sort of retcon the meal in your mind.
I wish that's how it works.
And you're going to
that's true. Actually,
there's been enough regrets.
You'd be like, I don't pay I'm not an idiot. I don't pay $60 for garbage food.
Well, actually, because this is a different scenario where because I definitely don't blame myself. I blame the restaurant. So there are cases where you just truly believe that the other party has slighted you.
Mm-hmm. I usually go for like mid-tier meals on the menu because I'm always nervous that if I buy an expensive thing that it's going to be tiny.
It usually as price goes up, scale goes down.
What they do is they give you smaller food and then they take like a fucking little like bottle thing with a nozzle and they like swirl. They like put a swirl on the plate or like put art on it or something. I'm like, I can't eat that. My God. All right. All right. So before we get on to questions, I'd like to read a review from our podcast, our Apple Podcasts page. Mm-hmm. So this review comes from Angry Muffin, Angry Muffin says, "This is the best podcast ever, unless you don't like swears or adult words and adult topics like beer and mortgages. Seriously, these guys only occasionally lace real words into this thing. Spruce up your day with a little butterscotch in your coffee. I've been listening to this show all day, every day for the last year and a half. Yes, that means I have listened to it 5 times. Keep up with the studio that made Crashlands and hear about the stuff they're working on next. So listen to this comedy podcast and tell your mom she's a nice lady. Tell your enemy. Tell Justin Bieber and Donald Trump, because that is the only way to make this podcast go viral, which is true. So yeah, thank you for that review. Appreciate that a lot. And we also have a link over to, what is it? bit.ly/CWB Apple. So if you want to get a quick link over to drop us just a quick 5 stars and some heartfelt comments, go for it. All right. Now let's get on some questions. These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net, and they're asked by our listeners and maybe some randos who just wandered in on accident.
Maybe you next week. Who knows?
Who knows?
Say.
All right. First question comes from Ruckus 1911, which this person is 106
Old
years old.
Ruckus.
That's a long ruckus. So Ruckus 1911 says, what was it like when you decided to invite outside people to join the company for the first time? How did you broach the subject of telling them they'll be working in your basement? I'm in a similar spot, new people, and using my basement. So first of all, congratulations.
Yeah, it's awesome.
On bringing people into your basement tribe.
Yep.
So one thing is you don't spring that on people after the fact.
Yeah, make sure that should happen during the interview phase.
Yeah. And actually, it was fairly natural because of the fact that we explained ourselves as a startup, that this is our first round of hiring. All this kind of stuff is true, and so then we just sort of tacked onto that.
So you're gonna be
in a basement because we're not yet at a point where we're willing to spend the extra money on an office space.
But two things. This is all about framing, right?
Yep.
So two things here. One is
our basement is sick.
Our basement is dope and it has a window.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, it's kind of a basement, kind of not a basement.
And it's painted in butterscotch colors, has a butterscotch logo across, has butterscotch art everywhere.
Right. We really brightened it up. Now we even have plants in it. It's crazy. So you got to talk it up. You got to really sell that basement.
Yeah.
And the other thing is,
if it's a dark, like cellar-like basement, just with exposed everything that seems like there are spiders everywhere.
Just a folding table. And like
you got a card table. You get down there, it's just must. Like you just are covered in must. What is must? I don't know, but it smells musty.
Yeah, if you're in that situation, maybe save up a little more money first and invest in just making it feel better.
Or just get some Febreze. Just Febreze the shit out of it.
That could be sufficient.
We use a lot.
I also think Febreze kills spiders, so it's pretty perfect.
So we got plants, and we also got we just burn through a lot of apple cinnamon candles.
Yeah, which we refer to them as air hacks.
Air hacks. You got to hack that air. You got to make sure that it doesn't feel like a basement. Right? Good lighting, good aromas.
Yeah, that's step one. But I think the bigger framing thing is actually just to say the reality is our values as a company are about paying well for our people to be here.
So we could get an office.
But then we either wouldn't be able to have a person or we wouldn't be able to treat our people as well. So this is where we're at right now. And our goal eventually is to, if your goal is to, unless you want to just stay in your basement forever, which needs to be known if that's your end goal. But if your goal is eventually to get a building and sort of expand a little bit, or even to get some better paint for your basement or some air hacks, you say, hey, that's on the horizon, but it's not where we're at right now because our mission is to, pay for our people. That's where we're at. As
the leader of the company, it's your job to be open and honest with people and also paint a vision of
where you're going,
where you're at and where you're going. Right. And it's okay.
Don't lie about it.
Yeah. It's okay to be in a basement. just be upfront about it.
Well, but I think that also adds to because there's this sort of, mythos of all these companies that started in a garage or a basement or whatever.
You got to play that shit up.
Yeah, play that shit up. That's actually part of your selling point as a startup company.
It's fun.
You're not even getting in on the ground floor. Yeah. You're getting in underground.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something that actually just kind of feels exciting and interesting about being involved at that early of a stage of a thing. And yeah, it actually. Again, if you got a dank as fuck basement, that's bad, right? That's not a selling.
Dank in the
dank
sort
in the negative sense.
In the dank cellar,
musty sense,
musty and wet kind of sense.
But if it's dank in the awesome sense,
then that's
there's a dankness spectrum. And
you want to be on the dank side, not the dank side.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like the word fuck, which
is very versatile.
It's very versatile.
Has a lot of different meanings.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you use it in the proper context. All right, next question comes from Quantum Anomaly. Now this question. Is we got to dig deep for this one. Okay. Brace your loins. Quantum Anomaly says, anything you do can always be better. But looking back on your games, what's one thing you wish you would have done worse? Is there anything that took too long and ended up being pointless or lame that you wish you didn't invest so much time up front on?
We cut out a lot of things that match that description before we launched the game. True. Is there something? There's got to be something still in there.
So, well, I think it's a little bit tricky of framing of the question, because what he's asking is just like, what's something that we did and sort of like finished, basically, that in retrospect shouldn't have done just in general, right? So it's not really about doing better or worse, but just about. Well,
it kind of can, because it also isn't just about done or not done, but it's also about just the time investment of doing a thing. You know, should we have? We talk about this with AI, right? Because for a while we had like A-star pathfinding as a way for in Crashlands for creatures to move around.
It's very CPU intense.
Very CPU intense, so it actually made the rest of the game a little bit worse. And so then we pulled it out and just made it the most brain dead pathfinding in the universe, where things just like, can I go there? And if not, then they don't.
Like, I'll just wait.
Yep.
Or like, I'm going to jump around in a triangle for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to do my
this whole thing blows over.
Yep. So that's an example case where of exactly that, right? Where we had done it a way that was like a smart way, and then realized that actually was problematic and did it dumber.
Yeah.
So there must be some stuff that we left in there.
Well, no, here's the thing. I think this is it's not correct to make a value judgment about these things. So Sam actually gave a talk at a writer's workshop last week about productivity, and there was a guy there. You want to talk about the guy who was talking about failure?
Yeah, so this was fun. So one of my local friends is part of the writers meetup here, and invited me to go just talk about productivity. And they usually don't do talks, actually. So I was like the first speaker they've had. And so in the middle of this talk, and part of it's just talking about what the actual value of failure is, of course, in the context of creative work, which is that failure is just not something that you should attach a value judgment to. It might suck in a sense because whatever you tried to do didn't work, but that's really a very short-sighted way to look at it, as opposed to realizing that it's part of the system of success at the end.
It's not bad or good. It's just part of moving forward.
Right. And so this gentleman afterwards asked, or he basically said, as I've gotten older, he's an older dude. He said, as I've gotten older, I just feel like I care less. And so I've been able to be very free and just sort of, I write whatever I want. And if you don't like it, then I don't care. And that's fine. And like he's sort of expounding this idea of, as he's gotten older, he's come to understand what failure means in the context of these larger scale successes. But he still was couching it in a negative term.
Saying it's not that bad.
Not that bad. Like it's not necessarily something that's going to like harm you forever. And I was like, well, I think I would take a step even further back and just reframe it and understand that it is simply a part of the process of succeeding at a thing, period. So if you fail, as long as you have your reflection methods in place, then it should be a case that's like, oh, this is interesting.
Well, but on the flip side, success isn't good either.
No, it's just
failure isn't bad and success isn't good. These are both just two sides of the same coin, which is just moving forward through life and learning shit, right?
Well, it's really about outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Both success and failure are outcomes. That's the reality of it. And you learn things from either one, and you also don't get to learn things from either one. This is an important note, because we found this with Crashlands. When you have a successful game, you don't get to learn a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff you can't tell, and this is a good example of this case. What could we have just not done in Crashlands that we still would have been able to maybe even ship earlier? Launch it, maybe even did better.
Yep.
We don't know.
We could have done a staggered launch, maybe like start on PC and then move to mobile later or something.
So the success of a thing sort of, and then failure in some ways too, but you can never quite tease out all the reasons why a thing did or didn't work. And so sometimes actually it is better to fail, quote unquote, or have a failure outcome, because sometimes it can be a direct, if you've sort of managed it in the appropriate way, it can be a direct piece of learning for you, where you get to understand a new piece about how the world works, because the failure wasn't huge in the sense that it wasn't, for example, like a whole new game that you built and then launched and that whole thing failed, but rather some piece of it that didn't quite do what you wanted it to do.
Yeah. And I think the important takeaway is when we think about things like, so Crashlands has the infinite inventory system. It didn't always have that. That wasn't designed up front. We started by borrowing inventory concepts from other games. And as we continued to work on the game, it just became worse and worse. It was more and more of a management nightmare and a game design nightmare. And we had to take a step back and ask the signature question, can we not? Can we not have an inventory system? And if we don't have one, what does that even mean? And we were only able to arrive at that question by doing it wrong first, right? And it really just means that you can only make the best decisions you can with the knowledge and context that you have. The important thing is to just move forward, right? Just keep moving forward, because then you learn about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. I will say one larger mistake I do think we made that in retrospect is sort of an example of overextending before getting a piece of knowledge regarding a subject was our convention sprint last year.
Oh, yeah.
Where we did like 3 of them back to back because it ended up burning basically a month and a half of time for essentially the whole studio. There's a lot of illness involved because you're traveling. There's a lot of expenses involved beyond just paying people. Yep. And it was atrocious. And it just like destroyed our progress for like a good month and a half. We probably could have done one of those and understood, because we knew immediately after doing one, like, oh, wow, this is a lot.
And it wasn't worth it.
But instead we were like, all right, first time we do these, let's do 3 of them at once.
Get a good sample size.
Yeah.
Problem is, those are some real expensive experiments.
Yeah.
And time and money and everything.
That's definitely one of those things that I think in retrospect, maybe just a smaller scale experiment first, right? It's the idea being test this idea. If it has a positive or negative outcome, now we can attribute it to that particular thing and sort of make good decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
and what you can't do is get so hyper fixated on whether you will succeed or fail that you do nothing, right? Because then you get no more information and you have nothing new. You just got to keep doing stuff, keep doing experiments. In the case of writing, so National Novel Writing Month is coming up.
NaNoWriMo, we have a channel in our Discord. So if you want to join for writing a book in a month with a bunch of other Butterscotches, a bunch of people are going to go for it.
bit.ly/BS Discord is where that is.
And NaNoWriMo, all you have to do is write 1,500 words a day.
Doesn't matter what they say.
You just got to get those words out.
Gotta get those words out.
They can be garbage words.
I think it's actually
matter.
1,666 or something like that.
So it ends up being somewhere for most people between like 45 minutes and an hour and a half of typing. So if you think about it like that, you're just typing.
You're just typing.
You're not writing a book. You just got to go type for an hour and a half every day. You could do
and if you ever get sort of stressed about it, you just say to yourself, "Who gives a shit?" and just keep typing it. What if I write a bad book?
No one cares.
Who gives a shit? I mean, just don't publish it. Now you learn some stuff. Now maybe next time you'll write a slightly less bad book. You know.
I have a question about this success failure thing. What if we went even further back?
All right, hit me, Adam.
Just said,
you're smirking.
And just said, what if
got that look?
Why even define anything in terms of success or failure?
That's what I'm saying.
Just period. So, because what does it mean for a thing to be successful?
It just means
hit the target. I think is what it means.
Is that what that means?
I think so.
I don't think that's really what that means.
Well, so this reminds me of like if you talk to somebody at a company and they're like, "Yep, here's our revenue targets. Like next year we're going to go for this many millions, and then the next year we're going to have this and this and this and
right.
this."
So you set some arbitrary goal.
What does that mean? What's this based?
And then if you hit it, you then call that success.
We did it.
In other words, success is completely arbitrarily defined.
Yeah,
always,
definitely.
So
you make it up.
So if you're just making it up anyway, then you're guaranteed to fail almost every time because you've made up an arbitrary success because there's one success case that is arbitrary and random. Everything else is now a failure case, but that success case doesn't mean anything. So why? Why not just go do things and then try to do things better?
Well, I think because the truth is that the like we've talked about before, the metrics that you choose end up guiding the way in which you do the thing. Right.
Yeah,
so
but why talk about it? Because there's better and worse, definitely, right? For like outcomes, right? And you can say like, here's kind of a list of outcomes we can expect. Here's kind of where we want to go,
But there's going to be some threshold at which you're like, that was good enough, which is what I would argue is the success.
But good enough to do what?
Whatever the fuck you wanted to do. That's the whole thing is that most people actually don't sit down to understand what that point of success is for them. Like as in what does that actually mean? Which is basically what your point is.
Yeah.
Because you're completely right that it is arbitrary. It is personal. Or on a company level, it is set by someone else. If you work in a company,
still personal.
So
some other person,
someone else. Yeah, you're working towards someone else's version of success. And ideally, you're in a company or you're creating a company where all those things are congruent. So, for example, if I'm like, I really want to make a bunch of kick-ass games, and we work in a game studio. Good,
perfect.
My vision is congruent with the vision of the studio as a whole. You want to be in that sort of scenario, but I do think it's the case that you have to. It is completely arbitrary, but you do have to set it. I don't think you can just.
But the thing is I'm not saying don't set it. I'm saying you don't need to have the framing of success and failure at all, right?
you're going to do the best that you can.
Yeah, you just do the best that you can.
Then
you have
some things happen.
Right, you have preferred outcomes, and then things happen. Right?
And then some of those things are good. So, for example, let's say you launch a game and you market the shit out of it, and you make what you think is a good game, and weirdly, like, it does really well financially, far beyond what you thought it could have. But also, it weirdly has a shitload of negative reviews, like 3/4 negative, which is possible, right? To have a successful financial game that also everybody hates somehow. What does that mean?
Have you succeeded or failed?
Right, because you've succeeded in making money, but you haven't succeeded in making a product that people.
And you
want,
also failed at making money in the way that you expected because the outcome actually was way better than you thought. How can you call that a success? Because you were responsible.
You
for
succeeded in marketing and like assuming that what you define as success is that a lot of people bought the game, but also you failed in marketing if your metric is whether people actually felt like they got what they paid for, right?
But you can be accidentally successful, right? In ways essentially that you didn't pre-plan.
Well, that's the thing is that's now allowing you just to have success be literally a random phenomenon, right?
Yes.
So then again, just what's the point?
Yeah. So I guess
why?
So yeah, by making a value judgment on it of like this was a success and this was a failure, it misses the point, which is the most important part is to do what you can with the information that you have. Try to make the best decisions that you can to get the best outcomes and the things that matter to you. And you will achieve varying degrees of outcomes in a whole bunch of different areas. Then you got to reflect. Whether you succeed or you fail, you have to take those things and you have to sort of internalize it and figure out what that means for you and then what you need to do going forward with all this new information that you've got.
Right. Well, I will say there's been very few times where we've done something where it felt like a pure success in that regard, right? Where we didn't look back and we weren't.
That's never happened.
Yeah, we were looking at it and saying, man, we really messed up X, Y, and Z, right? Or usually A through Z.
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time talking about the things that went right because.
What's there to talk about?
Because
what's the point?
Yeah. Because the things that you need to fix or that you actually have to do stuff about.
But I think that's the point is by obsessing over this idea of success, which again, completely fucking arbitrary.
Right.
If you obsess about that idea, so that you're striving for that thing, so that you have basically no choice but to feel like any alternative is actually like bad on some objective measure, right?
But you do need some mark to strive toward. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
which to me is actually then very simple. Is you don't divide things into good or bad, right? You don't divide things at all. You just do stuff where you try to find outcomes that seem like the outcomes you want, right? And then you go do a thing towards that outcome, and then you just see what happened. This was just an experiment. If you got exactly what you expected, that wasn't a success. That was just the thing that happened. This is now a thing you get to learn from. If it was a fail, if it didn't get there, that was another thing that happened. In both cases, you should now review those things and ask,
why did that happen?
Why did that happen? Right? Because that's what allows you to choose the next set of expectations and goals and so on, and try to make moves to reach towards them. And if you're constantly trying to divide things into whether or not you did it right or did it wrong, instead of just, I did a thing happened, what's next?
What's the connection?
Yeah.
And then how do I make it be better next time?
It was a funny thing because we do harp on self-reflection a bunch on this podcast.
Harp on in the positive sense. It's the thing you should do.
I mean, yeah,
But,
we're harping.
Yeah, sort of like, it's like playing a harp.
We're harping.
Majestic.
We're sort of
Serenading it.
serendipitous somehow.
Yeah, so we do talk about it quite a bit and push on it quite a bit. And I think a good example is today. So while we're in here podcasting, so we did our quarterly review, the three of us, sort of looking over the last 3 months of the studio and where we've gone to and sort of what's on the horizon. And then we realized after putting it together that, this is just a good exercise, straight up, a good exercise to do.
Look back in the last 3 months and just be like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
And why?
Because 3 months, it's long enough that you can do a lot of things, but short enough that you can still kind of remember doing those things. Right.
You do forget a lot of it.
You do forget a ton. So we actually made basically personal quarterly review sheets for everybody to sort of review in the office while we're in here. And then we're going to go talk about them afterwards. But the whole idea being to say, what happened over the last 3 months? How did I do in these various arenas? How could I have done better? And then what can I do sort of going forward to, be more of a badass in these various domains? And the whole thing rests on this general idea that it's just really fun to be growing and to improve all the time.
Mm-hmm. And if you reach success, then why would you want to improve anymore?
You just got to kick the goalpost.
Yeah. So, which then means then you failed. So then just quit it. Just quit talking about things in those fucking terms.
When you look back on all the work that you've done in the past, it should always just be horrifying. This is one of the things we talked about.
Because it should always be worse than what you can do now.
Yeah.
But I think if you think about, let's say somebody wants to be a novelist, right? And they want that to be their career. The way people often talk about it is, I want to be a successful author, right? And the problem is you can't be. You can't just be one. You have to become one over a really long period of time by making a lot of shitty things, and also by then defining what that even means to be a successful author in the long term, right? Doesn't mean you have a New York Times bestseller, selling 1 million copies, have a movie made out of your book. Doesn't mean sell 100 copies. Like, what even is that, right?
Yeah. So then why even use the word success and instead just say, here's the goal?
This is the problem is if you set that as your initial goal, I'm going to be a successful author, then it immediately disincentivizes you to just start making books, because you can't just write your first book. Well, I mean, unless you're a bizarre anomaly, right? But you can't just write your first book and now just be a successful author, which means you're coming into that project knowing that it's not going to get you there immediately, right? Which is just very discouraging. And then the second project, assuming you make it past the first one, which most people don't, then you get to the second project. That one's not going to get you there. Each one just inches you a little bit closer toward that goal.
And the more you reflect and the harder you work, then the bigger the jump each one provides for.
Right. And so by declaring that, you don't want to be an author, you want to be a successful author, right? Like, by making that weird jump mentally, now you've immediately just set the bar at a place where it just shouldn't be. And now you just can't go there.
And now you're defining your everyday experience as failure.
Right. Because every day you're writing that book and you're not successful yet. Right. So you're just sad now. Now you're just a sad author. So don't do that. Just do stuff. All right, let's get on to the next question. We have a couple of lore questions that we can tackle real quick.
Let's do it.
Parsifal 98, which is of course the name of the lead character from Ready Player One.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Says, is there a being inside the Crashlands /TF2 shared universe that created and placed all of the teleporters? So I'm glad
the first answer is yes. Seth put all those there.
Yep.
And Sam designed it.
And the lore answer is yes, but we haven't quite.
We haven't decided. Is it Virutech?
It's supposed to be Virutech.
I think it's Virutech.
We know that something like Hugo or Thorn or these weird aliens, floaty head aliens with their chin straps, constructed these things, because the denizens of Wonope they don't have that kind of capacity at this stage, right? There's Remerl, who dabbles in the energy arts, but even Remerl is not sophisticated enough to make a teleporter, right?
So the idea here is that the Viru, there either was, maybe is, we don't actually know because we haven't needed to think about it yet.
Yeah.
But there some remnant of Viru civilization is on planet Wonope. And the Viru are extremely technologically advanced in the same way that if you go to, I guess a fun close cousin of it would be like looking at the Marvel world for Thor, which is like, if you go, when you look at them on Asgard, it's like all this crazy high tech stuff that looks like magic, sort of a thing.
Right.
So that's sort of the boundary that the Viru straddle as well, but there's not very many of them left. And it appears to be
the original. I don't know how much we've strayed from this, but the original lore that we had back when we started Crashlands, we're kind of like fleshing out what the Viru are up to, was that Wonope, where Crashlands and Talfight 2 take place, is actually a penal colony.
Yeah, it's a prison planet.
For the Viru, who actually are like alive and well on a neighboring planet. But that Thorn and Joby. Yeah, Thorn, Joby. Basically all the Viru that you've seen in the games. Basically were sent to this prison planet because they tried to arrange some kind of a coup or something on their home planet. And that's how they all ended up. But it's a neighboring place, the prison colony, so it has tech because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't fleshed it all out though.
Yeah, but
we haven't needed to.
In the Crashlands manual, there is a bunch of info about sort of what happened in the backstory with the Viru. So if you go to crashlands.net, we have a little link to the manual, and you can kind of read about that stuff. So it is the case that the Viru had been living. So they get exiled to this planet, and much like Australia, they just developed a flourishing civilization there.
Right. Yep.
So And of course, everything is trying to kill them all. It's basically Australia. I mean, we're not basically Australia. So,
everything's poisonous and huge.
Yep. And then the next question is kind of related, which is from Sling07 and Bros.
All right.
And Bros. Just 2 words. What is juice in Roid Rage?
So juice is a sort of our fundamental energy system in a lot of our games, actually. So this will take play. It will appear in Scuffle Buddies as well.
Yeah.
So give that away.
We got some new interesting spins on juice as well.
So juice is sort of this energy concept. And so the idea with Planet Wonope is that it happens to almost anomalously be sort of saturated in juice.
Yeah.
It's got a juice core.
Yeah. Which just for what that means for the planet, almost think about like radioactivity, I guess, probably a good sort of parallel to it, which is it's just a sort of wildly fluctuating energy source. And it naturally, the reason there's so much sentient life, for example, on Wonope in theory has to do something with also the correlation with how much juice there is and just how big the creatures get, how magical things happen, all this other stuff is all sort of bound into this wild energy source called juice. And there's a few different types of it in theory. We haven't necessarily, we dove into that with one of the previous games that we actually shelved before landing on Scuffle Buddies. So that may make an appearance in Scuffle Buddies as well. So yeah.
It will. Maybe. I mean, we don't know.
Don't know anything about anything.
All right. And then next question comes from Skogust, who says, why does Crashlands have a kind of straight on isometric perspective for the tiles instead of the more typical diagonal isometric perspective that Quadrupus Rampage used?
Well, you answered that, Seth. I think it's that's a programmer problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a combo art and programming problem.
So isometric art, if you're doing it perfectly, is a tremendous pain in the ass.
Well,
so there's that.
We should clarify what these things mean. So isometric just means that there's no perspective shifting as things move farther away. Mm-hmm. And then there's also an axonometric grid where things are diagonal, like the diamond shaped grid. Mm-hmm. And then there's a rectangular grid, which is what Crashlands uses. So Quadrupus Rampage uses the diagonal diamond shaped grid. They're both in an isometric perspective. It's just basically how is the grid rotated is the question. Mm-hmm. At the time of Crashlands, I was just didn't have the insight or skill to figure out like how do we do things like world spawning and despawning with this weird grid shape. And Sam was also a little uncomfortable with having to draw a third side for every object in the game, right? So if you think about like a cube,
yeah, it's 50% more sides.
Yeah, if you're looking at that cube, if you're looking at a cube straight from the front, it just looks like a square. Mm-hmm. If you look at it sort of like from the front, but then like move the camera up a little bit, like a little bit of a top down thing, now it's like 2 squares, right? And if you put it on a diagonal grid,
they got
rotate that cube. There's 3 faces of that cube, right? Mm-hmm. And so making something in like a 2D side scroller, we're just looking at things from one side. That's a lot less, like a lot fewer things to kind of process in your brain while you're drawing stuff. Top down like Crashlands, it's a little bit harder, but it's manageable.
Especially what we did is we cast all the portraits and all the creatures and stuff are basically in a portrait view. So they're more flat. They look they look down and right. And as far as how they're actually created and exported.
Yeah.
So that we can make them go up without actually changing their direction, which some people don't realize is like a comical thing that happens is people say, oh, wow, I really like the animation, like how the characters look the other way when they go like up and down. I'm like, that does not happen.
Like mine's just filling the gaps.
Yeah. Everything is always looking at the camera.
Yeah.
Even when it's running away from the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see like a 3D rendering of what this would actually look like, because it's like if a Wampet is running upwards on the screen and Flux is running upwards to chase it, then they're both facing away from the direction that they're running, and they're both like running backwards, and one of them's chasing the other.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
It's pretty weird.
But the reason this becomes a problem, though, isn't because of the angle of the grid and all this kind of stuff, because it is still all the same, because there's no reason you have to have a thing drawn on the grid be in exactly the same orientation as the grid, unless you have a crafting game where you need to put walls next to each other, or other rectangular components that need to be facing in a consistent direction so that they can be like rotated against one wall or whatever. As soon as you have that, now you can't just have things face arbitrary directions anymore.
Yeah.
because they have to go together in some way, which means you need some sort of coherent plan for how things are oriented in space. And that probably should follow the grid because it's going to feel better, you know?
So base building kind of gets
base building is I think for Crashlands in particular wasn't the thing that required it to be that way, but was the thing that made it so that it
made it easier to manage.
It made it way easier to manage.
The basic point is that we needed to simplify along some dimension somewhere. And that was the one we ripped out.
Well, and we should say for the new game, we actually had this discussion of, how do we put things, with the end result being that, well, if we just minimize the number of things that are rectangular and positioned relative to one another, then we can use whatever grid we want and draw things whatever orientation we want, and it's fine because it actually doesn't matter, right? And so that's kind of what we're striving for with this one, is have things be more organic most of the time, with a more limited set of things that actually follow the grid. And then because things, they just look better because they're more 3D when they adhere to the diamond shape, grid. And so that way, if we just only have to draw a few of those because they're very difficult, as Sam was saying, but put them on that grid, and then everything else is kind of more free to do whatever it wants, then you kind of get the best of everything.
Yeah. And things got to hit this point. Things got to hit this weird point with doing the diagonal grid where if you're really sticking to the grids, look at a game like Bastion, right? Which is like, they really stuck to that perspective, which means they had to do an insane amount of work to get the character rendered properly in all these different dimensions and to make everything look like it fit. And at a certain point, you're looking at this and there's a question, which is like, could this just be in 3D?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're doing so much work to draw stuff to make it look 3D. Right. Could you just do it in 3D? Yep. So we gotta make sure that we don't do so much extra work past the line of, what's acceptable, that it just doesn't make sense why we would be making a 2D game anyways. We are doing a lot more experiments, and we are trying to push the envelope and make our worlds look more organic and better in the future. Not gonna give anything away. All right, so we have one final question, which is from Angry Muffin. And again, this is pretty deep. Angry Muffin says, there hasn't been any noticeably loud nudity on the podcast recently. Why is this?
That's true.
What's going on, guys? I mean, it is fall.
It is fall. So it's getting a little colder.
It's getting a little colder.
You got all these layers.
Yet, though.
If you're covered in layers, it's just harder and harder to strip down.
I think it's more, this is one of the problems that comes from, growing the student and becoming more professional, which is that
there's just a lot less nudity.
There's a lot, and it has to be way quieter.
Way quieter when it is there. Yeah, you got to really. We have sound dampened walls in here now, so they just
absorb the nudity.
They absorb the nudity sounds.
Yeah. So I think that's been the biggest constraint on nudity volume.
But again, I mean, I think
it's just been the growing professionalism of our studio.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that it's in there. And like we do have that explicit tag on Apple Podcasts because
that's how you know there's nudity.
That's how you know there's nudity in that podcast.
Yep.
But it is the case. We have better mics now. We've got we got some moving blankets and we stapled them to the ceiling. So now we're sort of encased in this sound dampened area. And so I mean, there's some stuff going on, but it's just it's absorbed. The mics are very directional.
The nudity's always there. Really,
it's always there. 100%. I mean, one of the things that we don't have to talk about is like we have the Crashlands documentary, and literally every body part that is off camera is naked. It is wild.
Yeah.
Well, it's a remarkable feat too, because as a camera pans across somebody,
it's just
clothes are coming off and on.
Yeah.
If you listen really closely, you can just hear the rustling of nudity in the background.
So,
but we just have had to stop. I mean, now that we also have healthcare for the company, it's just still very official.
Yeah, you gotta
get that code of conduct. Quiet nudity only, please. Use your inside nudity voices.
None of this sort of like kind of nudity you'd use, walking down the street. That's
crazy.
That's unprofessional. All right, so. That's all. Thanks for the question, Angry Muffin. This is pretty good. So that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our studio wrangler, Monique, for putting this episode together, and our producer, Fat Barb, for making us sound good, and the Butterscotch dev team, Andy, Tifa, and Sher, for continuing to build stuff while we're in here chatting. Also, special thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, hop into our Discord server, which is at bit.ly/bsdiscord. We have a special podcast channel in there. You can just come on in, say hi, talk about, things that we covered on the podcast. Mostly nudity. Also, we have a mailbox.
Don't talk too much about nudity in there.
Actually, yeah.
Preferably, zero. Zero would be ideal.
But candy's fine.
Yeah.
Speaking of candy, we have a mailbox. So if you want to send us some candy, head on over to mailbox.bscotch.net. We'll eat it immediately.
Yeah.
Also, we depend on word of mouth and great reviews to get new listeners. And right now, we're trying to hit 100 iTunes reviews or Apple Podcast reviews. So if you're listening on that platform, you can help us out by going over to bit.ly/CWBApple. Leave us 5 stars. It'll help others find us and let us spread butterscotch all over the internet. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Also go to shop.bscotch.net.
Oh, yeah.
Go to shop.bscotch.net.
I know we talked about it earlier, but that was like an hour ago.
Cover your nudity in butterscotch swag.
That should be the tagline on the
store. Cover that shit up. All right. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.